we're starting to see the media sing a really different tune. I mean, it's kind of surprising. All of a sudden, we actually have a shot, believe it or not, of them telling the truth. I mean, I couldn't believe this when I heard MSNBC saying what they said and CNN saying what they said. Wow, this is kind of a different environment. And by the way, it's long overdue. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Trish Regan. This is Trish Regan Show. Make sure you subscribe, share, like. I'm watching all your comments in real time. We have Donald Trump threatening lawsuit after lawsuit. For goodness sakes, the BBC finding out the hard way just exactly what it means when you falsely edit tapes and you totally change the narrative, right? Well, all of a sudden, we're looking at a media environment where you've got the likes of CNN and the likes of MSNBC positively terrified because, well, they've all been so excited, like salivating at the bit, right, over the Epstein emails. It's all they can talk about. And now they're starting to realize, wait a second. Okay, so Donald Trump hasn't been implicated in any of this. Maybe we got to be a little bit more cautious, just teeny tiny bit, because he is the president right now, and the FCC does have this little thing called distortion of the news rule that could land some of the networks, like CBS, which is trying to acquire CNN, in a bit of trouble, or, NBC, which owns it still has it. It can't wait to spin it off with that Versant merger. Well, they still have MSNBC, so they kind of got to tread carefully. Here's CNN as they're reporting on those Epstein emails, trying to manage this appropriately and fairly. I'm stunned.
That mentioned the president. And we do want to be clear, the president, Trump, did not receive or send any of the messages, which largely predated his time as president. He's not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing in connection with Epstein or Maxwell. The White House...
He's not accused of any wrongdoing. Okay, but we're going to report on this anyway because everybody's reporting on this. Look at the New York Times. Oh my gosh, it's on the front page of the New York Times. Everybody's reporting. MSNBC is salivating, but even Jen Psaki, who's doing miserably. I mean, maybe she had a good night just because it's the Epstein email stories that they just, can't stop covering. She might have had one good night, but she is definitely down in the basement in terms of ratings. And she also knows, like her CNN, what would you call them? Cohort? Her CNN cohort, she knows that she can't say something that's not true. I mean, we've never seen this before. I can't wait to see Rachel's show on Monday. Oh my gosh, how she's going to navigate this. Watch Psaki, Peppermint Patty.
In supporting what Donald Trump is doing.
You're talking about the other predators out there, in addition to Trump.
Absolutely.
Woo! Okay, the other predators out there in addition to Trump. So she's now labeling Donald Trump a predator, which would be like, I don't know, kind of a good libel suit for him if he wanted to pursue that. So let's go back and watch immediately how she corrects herself. Here we go.
To Trump. I'm not saying he is. We don't know all the details about that. I just mean in addition to what we've learned about Epstein and others, there's other predators out there.
There are, and we have to remember that Alex Acosta, when he...
Okay, so she has to be careful because he's willing. He's proven he's willing to sue them over false information or distorted news reports or just plain old libel. I mean, Georgie Poo over at ABC News had to learn that one the hard way, right? $16 million later, despite his producer telling him over and over and over again, you can't actually say that. He went forward and said it anyway on that rather infamous edition of This Week with Georgie Poo. And Georgie Poo wound up having to, get totally humiliated, and his network had to pay $16 million. $1 million went to the lawyers, $15 million to the Trump library, and it's the same story over at CBS. Now you've got investigations going on into CBS, into NBC, and into ABC. So somewhere along the line, they may actually start to smarten up, and I would say, hey, you know what? That's why we have laws. That's why we have lawyers. That's why the courts are actually good, because you guys ought to know that there are consequences to doing things like you have done. The bias in the media has been so off the charts that take a look at this. The Democrats actually put this tweet out, and then I guess they're worried about getting sued. I mean, it's a completely ridiculous tweet. And when we go through it, I'll show you why. But they then took it down. So the Democrats are, as I mentioned, rabid, right? They're trying to treat this Epstein thing, which kind of feels like Russia, Russia, Russia to me all over again. In fact, in some of the emails, it's come out that one of the victims who's no longer with us had actually already said that Donald Trump had nothing to do with anything. But, that's not going to stop them from running with it. They're trying however they can to get something out of nothing. So the Democrats put this up and they said, new documents show Donald Trump spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017. So, I don't know. What do you think would be wrong with that statement? I'm going to go with, hey, I was reporting during Thanksgiving of 2017. I believe he had some kind of turkey event, right? Out on the lawn, when they pardoned a turkey. They're trying to say he was down there on the island in 2017. Well, Epstein was actually in jail. And Donald Trump was in the White House. So if anybody with half a brain in the Democrat Party that's running this little Twitter account thought about it for 2 seconds, they would have realized this tweet made absolutely positively no sense and actually couldn't actually be true. So once again, they're causing us to say, are you people for real? Like, you don't even make sense. It's like, oh, no, that virus couldn't possibly have originated from the lab that's actually studying that virus in Wuhan, China. No, that had to have come from that market. Or that Hunter Biden laptop thing, that couldn't possibly have belonged to Hunter. That's just Russian misinformation, disinformation. You understand, guys? Like, we're getting tired of it. You put out something like this where you're saying that Donald Trump is spending the evening, with Epstein on his island in 2017 for Thanksgiving. You put that one out because according to the email, they're joking around there about, okay, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And going to be, and he mentions Trump. Like, unbelievable. All right, so they had to take it down. So I think the upshot here is everybody's suddenly getting a little bit more careful. And I would say, hey, you know what? That's a good thing. That's a good thing, because you guys ought to remember one thing. You know what? The FCC has some power. I want to get into what the FCC could do, and this is what keeps them up at night at some of these networks, because, there's already a group, some democracy action group that's coming out, and they're saying, okay, we got 5 people together. We got a bipartisan coalition of 7 former FCC chairs and commissioners, including 5 Republicans, they say, and senior staff. They filed a formal petition calling on the FCC to rescind its news distortion policy, which they claim is outdated and can run into all kinds of problems. This is the policy. So it's rarely used, but this is kind of what, Brennan Carr has in his back pocket. It's the FCC's authority to take action and to sanction effectively, because there might be complaints about accuracy or bias in the news at news network stations. If reporters or commentators are biased in how they cover or sometimes opt to not cover events. The authority, as the FCC on its own website points out, that actually the authority is fairly narrow, but because of the First Amendment, et cetera, but they do have the ability to ensure that there's no distortion, like full-on total distortion in the news overall, and that this is afforded to those networks, right? Because if you go back to, I think it's 1949 when they made this decision to install this sort of distortion sanction threat. It was put in 1949 to basically protect that the news would indeed be for the community. And that's what the FCC license would guard. Now, it doesn't cover, as the FCC's own website points out, it doesn't cover cable, right? So Jen Psaki, I know she's worried, but maybe she's worried about getting personally sued. Maybe she's worried about her network getting sued. Maybe, they're just trying to be more proactive about getting their facts right, because they haven't in the past. But could the FCC shut down MSNBC? Unlikely in part because here's what they're saying. They can shut down NBC, but not MSNBC. The FCC has a policy against, quote, news distortion in over-the-air broadcast, meaning local TV and radio stations, and they have had that for over 50 years. Cable news networks, newspapers or newsletters, whether online or print, we've talked about this, I've filled you in on this before, as well as social media platforms, online-only streaming outlets, or any other broadcast news platforms are outside of the FCC's jurisdiction, so I get to do whatever I want over here. I always try and give you the truth, however, and I don't think everybody does that. And that's what's really sad about the state that we're in. Now, listen, you can get opinion anywhere. I encourage everybody to hear all opinions. You should see my news feed. And what do? I show you what they're saying on all these other places, because you might as well see it, because you might as well know how aggressive, we'll use that word, it has gotten out there. It says, quote, news distortion must involve a significant event and not merely a minor or incidental aspect of the news report. In weighing the constitutionality of the policy, courts have recognized that the policy, quote, makes a crucial distinction between deliberate distortion and mere inaccuracy or difference of opinion. So in other words, you can have opinionated people on things like Georgie Poo's show on the weekend, or, Peppermint Patty's show, although again, she's irrelevant because she's MSNBC. If she was NBC, we'd be watching what she said more carefully. But you can have the opinion, but at some point, if you're actually just blatantly misinforming people, that's when it becomes an issue. And you see, this is why a show like The View is in so much trouble right now. This is why you saw last week Whoopi Goldberg get handed a note, even when she was just making a joke. And I agree, you ought to be able to make a joke. You ought to be able to have an opinion. But after a while, when you guys only have one opinion all of the time, and Media Research Center has done some reporting on this, they've found that 87% of the time, guess what? Surprise, surprise. The coverage at the broadcast media outlets of the shutdown has been negative to Republicans 87% of the time. Surprise, surprise, positive towards Democrats. And so when people start paying attention to things like that and they realize, okay, sanctions are in front of us and we could use them if we choose to at the FCC. Yes, you get groups that are worried and groups that think that this is infringing on the First Amendment, to which I say, go to cable, okay? Go to YouTube. Nobody really needs the networks anyway, let's be honest. Here's Whoopi realizing.
And the other insane thing is that when people are going to go to their meetings with the judge, the meetings that they're supposed to go to, when they're listening to, what the hell, what?
I love when Sonny passes notes.
We don't know if Trump used an auto pen to part. It was a joke.
Yeah. We don't know if Trump used an auto pen to
Oh,
part.
come on.
But we do know that he didn't know who that crypto guy was.
Well, I'm sorry. The hardest thing about this job now is no one understands nuance. When you hear a joke, when somebody's fooling around, when they're not saying something specific, especially on this show. I'm very specific when I'm pointing stuff out. When I'm making jokes, when I'm making jokes. This is ridiculous.
Really? Because, I do recall she very seriously told us that a black gay woman would be better off in Iran today than in the United States of America. That was not a joke. That was Whoopi's delusional God knows what. Okay, so in fairness, she's entitled to her insane opinion. We'll let that one go. What about when she kept saying, oh, you, the taxpayer, are going to pay for the ballroom. You're going to pay for the ballroom. When it turns out, funny enough, Comcast, her competitor over there at NBC, they actually were paying for the ballroom, along with a whole bunch of other companies, including a lot of tech companies and crypto companies, etc. In other words, at some point, you can only get away with the Pinocchio stuff for so long, right? And at some point, you're going to run into trouble. And I think this is what you're seeing these networks come to, sort of the realization of. Why would CNN care? I don't think they want to get sued, because they saw what happened over at the BBC. They saw what happened at CBS. They do want to do this merger with CBS News, which would mean David Ellison's in charge, and that would mean, that Barry Weiss is in charge. They got kind of a different, shall we say, tone and feel to their newsroom. And so they wouldn't be able to really, that would look badly, shall we say, on CNN and on CBS, its potential acquirer, if they're going around getting sued because they're libeling the president, which is why, again, listen to her wording on this. It's important. She's covering her tracks, which is what reporters ought to do, for goodness sakes.
that mentioned the president. And we do want to be clear, the president, Trump, did not receive or send any of the messages, which largely predated his time as president. He's not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing in connection with Epstein or Maxwell.
Okay, thanks.
The White House.
Thanks for letting us know. Pretty interesting. You know, I got to tell you, I'm sort of fascinated with the timing on this because they've got these emails and then they release them. And if you ask me, the timing is what we call sus, right? Super, super suspicious, totally sus. Because if you wanted to go after him, and gosh darn it, we knew you guys wanted to go after him. For goodness sakes, you tried everything you could. I mean, Letitia baby was trying to bankrupt him. You had Fanny down in Georgia trying to put his Fanny in the you-know-what, complete with, you know, the mugshot, etc. And then you had Alvin Bragg and you had Jack Smith. I mean, you had all this stuff simultaneously going on. It was like, I can't believe it, right? So you're trying everything you can to get him locked up forever or bankrupt forever, and you're unsuccessful. So you're sitting on all these emails and you don't bother to use them? Like, why would you? I mean, if you had anything, don't you think that would come out? Like, let's just be logical here, right? If you're a Democrat and for you the worst thing in the world is Donald Trump winning again, if you're James Comey and you're going on MSNBC telling Peppermint Patty, for goodness sakes, we can't let this guy win. We need to get him a double wide down in Georgia so he can stay in prison during the next 4 years. If that is your mindset, why on earth wouldn't you dig up these emails that you had access to and go have a giant party? Like, you know, if this was so incriminating, believe me, they would have used it. And I'm not the only one saying this. I got a kick out of Stephen Smith. If you guys ever watch his podcast, you probably don't, and that's fine. I'd prefer you're over here watching mine. But anyway, I got a kick out of him making exactly the same point. Take a peek.
Ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind that the Epstein files were in existence and free to have been opened during the Biden administration. You were there for 4 years. How come?
You had all the time in the world. You could have done it. So why didn't you? Why? Seriously, why didn't you? I want to know why you're choosing now to release the emails when you could have done it before. I mean, maybe it's because it's going to reflect badly on some other people. And maybe you just don't care now. Maybe you're willing to make those sacrifices now and you weren't willing to make them then. I don't think so. I think the reality is you knew there was no there. You did know that other people would get trapped up in it, including some of your own, some of your big campaign donors. So maybe you didn't have quite the incentive. And now you're just out of luck, right? You got such a disarray, if you would, for your overall party that you're like, okay, what the heck? We're going to throw something at the wall to see what sticks. And this is the latest and greatest that you've got. I mean, Gavin Newsom, he's like, I think he's losing his mind. I think he's losing his mind because he also knows he's losing his party. He knows he's losing his opportunity to be top of the ticket next time around because you see there's this quasi-Spanish girl. I say quasi because she does not speak Espanol. Yo hablo Espanol. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. No, nada. Okay, so this woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is basically throwing a giant coup. All right, she's trying to take over the entire party, and Gavin Newsom is coming apart at the seams because she just said this. And by the way, she's getting way more attention than he is. I mean, she's prettier, right, than he is. And he's what some might call a bit of a pretty boy. Here we go.
I think it's important that we understand that this is not just about Senator Schumer, but that this is about the Democratic Party. Senator Schumer, there's no one vote that ended this shutdown. We are talking about a coordinated effort of 8 senators with the knowledge of Leader Schumer voting to break with the entire Democratic Party in exchange for nothing. And now people's health care costs.
Okay. So you see, she's run this one all the way to the bank. She's riding this way all the way to, I don't know. Is she going to take Chuck Schumer's seat or is she actually going to try and top the ticket? She might. I mean, there was a study that came out about 4 months ago showing that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was actually the leader of the Democrat Party. So Gavin, oh my goodness, poor baby Gavin, what are you going to do? Or you're going to go crazy on social media and you're going to put things out like this. Oh, there's worse stuff you put out, but there are words that we won't use on the Trish Regan show because we're not going to stoop to their disgusting, pathetic level. But let's just suffice it to say, Gavin's got his issues. He's got, like, I don't know, some kind of schizophrenic Twitter account where he's just hiring crazy people. I don't know what's going on, but he's trying so hard to beat the president at his own game, and it's not working. So he's got island boys out there. Oh yeah, it turns out that wasn't actually true. And what do you know? The Democrats actually had to pull that tweet that they put out because they were trying to say documents show that Donald Trump spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017, even though Jeffrey Epstein was in prison and Donald Trump was in the White House. I mean, it's unbelievable. They just lie and they lie and they lie and they lie. And then there's Gavin saying, okay, well, I'm gonna work these lies. I am not even gonna play for you what Jasmine Crockett said on CNN because it's disgusting and their verbiage is disgusting, okay? They are going down in the gutter as far as they can. But should we be surprised? The short answer is no, because look at what they did with Russia. And you tell me, are you not seeing some kind of correlation between the Russia narrative and what we're now experiencing at this moment as they try and go through these Epstein emails, the Epstein emails to nowhere? I mean, come on, guys. I guess it's fine. You're gonna eat your own in the process, aren't you? That's ultimately what's gonna happen. But Gavin is freaking out because Gavin knows he's got competition. I mean, Jasmine is so much more catchy, right? With her bleach, butch, blonde, God knows what, gobbledygook. And then you have AOC, who's just so much more attractive than him. And then you have the left wing of the party that's gone totally commie. And what is he going to do? Especially when he's getting sued by the likes of Pam Bondi, who's like, hey, you want a gerrymander? You try that. Guess what? We're coming after you because it's illegal. Yeah, you can't actually develop districts based on race, which is what they're trying to do. I mean, this has been very important to him for a while. If you go back to 2020, there's a press release where he said our painful history of slavery has evolved into structural racism and bias built into and permeating throughout our democratic and economic institutions. Ooh, trying to sound smart. We won't turn away from this moment to make right the discrimination and disadvantages that Black Californians and people of color still face. Oh, okay. So like at one point out there in sunny California, Gavin, pretty boy Gavin with the slick back hair, was actually trying to get through reparations. So that was a platform for a while. And then of course they had free healthcare for all. That, I'm like, what are you guys going to do? They're actually right now, believe it or not, there's a group that's trying to float a bill that would make it so that if you've ever lived in California, you can never, ever move out without getting hit with this massive tax. It's like, sorry, guys, it's just actually not going to work. It's not constitutional. I mean, it's bad enough the U.S. has that. Hey, did you know that if you want to move and change your citizenship, the United States government, Uncle Sam, gets to take 50% of your entire net worth? Because they didn't want people moving out. Like California thinks it's going to do the same. Good luck on that, California. We do live in a federalist United States of America still. So he's crazy on this stuff. He's absolutely crazy. And he is trying to do some funny stuff on the illegal front in terms of the gerrymandering. But you know what? Pam Bondi, she's onto him. And Pam Bondi's like, yeah, no way. You're not actually going to do this. Let me go to her explaining it and telling you exactly what they're anticipating for legal action against Gavin Newsom in the state of California.
It wasn't even illicit. They are flat out publicizing what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it. They're trying to create seats based on race, and they can't do it. And we're going to hold them accountable just like any other state. I mean, they've very publicly said, Sean, what they're trying to do, and it's illegal gerrymandering. They cannot do it. So, yeah, we sued them today. We're going to continue suing California until they start complying with the laws of our country, whether it's, what else, sanctuary cities, the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. We're winning in the Supreme Court.
National Guard.
Our ICE, that's exactly right, that the National Guard and ICE can be in California to actually protect the citizens of California. Let's see what else. Illegal emissions from trucks. And look what Sean Duffy did today. Look what he found with all the truckers who were given illegal licenses, truck driving licenses in California. It's constant with that state.
We saw what happened in Florida.
Amazing, right? So it's like one thing after another. But Gavin's coming apart because he knows the AOC is coming for the bigger position, ladies and gentlemen. I will say this, it's really important. It's really important that the Democrats do not actually take the House, because I can just see this. I can see this right now in real time, what would happen and what would you see? They would just go after Trump yet again, over and over and over again, because this is their MO. I mean, if they take control of the Congress next year, my gosh, I mean, they're not just going to block the president's agenda. They're going to work every day to undo all the good things he's done. You know, like I would not be surprised if they pack the courts, because how many times have they told us how much they don't like the Supreme Court? They want to raise taxes. For goodness sakes, Kathy Hochul already came out today. She came out in the state of New York and she said she was considering that, because Mamdani, remember, wants to raise corporate taxes. He's talking about raising it to 11.5% from roughly 7.5% or 7% now. Every corporation is going to leave, okay? Like, this is how it works. Just ask Venezuela. They want to gut border security. They want to push through every far left policy imaginable. Hakeem Jeffries, Schumer, if they're still there, for goodness sakes, they're not going to rest until they have reversed all that Donald Trump has accomplished. So I want to point out why our friends at Americans for a Balanced Budget, why they're calling at this moment on Congress to reverse a massive healthcare tax hike set to hammer millions of hardworking Americans with higher costs. Congress must extend critical healthcare tax credits and keep premiums affordable for working families. You know that, I know that, because they're buying their own coverage, for goodness sakes. And with open enrollment underway, many are facing a whole lot of sticker shock, which means monthly premiums are set to double for most. And there's still time to act. I mean, that's the good news here. Congress has to act swiftly. I don't think we can wait until midterms. If they don't, you know, you're going to be risking a whole lot. And you're possibly giving the Democrats a political gift, because this is one that they're going to take and use to basically, possibly, hopefully not, but try to win back power and block the Trump agenda and impose this woke progressive ideology that we all hate on American citizens right now. So before it's too late, go over to our friends there at Stop Health Cost Hikes. That's what I meant. Stop Healthcare. I put it on the screen so you can see it there. Go check them out. Portions of this show, the Trish Regan Show, are brought to you in part by Americans for a Balanced Budget. They are behind this right now to stop health cost hikes.com. I know it's a mouthful, but you guys can do it. You guys can do it. I know you can, if anyone can. It's the viewers of the Trish Regan Show. Listen, Swalwell, as long as we're talking about California, you remember this guy, you know, the one that had the thing with Fang Fang, Eric Swalwell. Well, he's in a little bit of trouble, because according to Bill Pulte, who's head of FHA, forgive me, the Federal Housing, FHFA. I knew I'd get it eventually. Anyway, Pulte is like, okay, you can't have your primary home in two places, right? So they're looking at him for what they're calling is an alleged mortgage fraud situation. Don't forget, they were looking at Adam Schiff for this. They have looked quite extensively at Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve for this. And of course, our favorite, Tishy Baby, Letitia James. She's even worse. Like, I mean, she's got multiple things going on. I can't even get started on that. That's a whole show onto itself, of which we've done many. Anyway, Swalwell is in a lot of trouble.
That he claimed as his primary residence. He didn't waste any time hitting back, writing in a statement, as the most vocal critic of Donald Trump of the last decade and as the only person still has a surviving lawsuit against him. The only thing I'm surprised about is that it took him this long to come after me. I refuse to live in fear in what was once the freest country in the world.
Oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, if you did what they're alleging, you ought to be able to just face that, right? Like, who cares? Like, if you did what they're alleging, I understand you'd be concerned and you're going to be in a lot of trouble. But if you didn't do it, then you really don't have that much to worry about, do you, Eric Swalwell? Here's what I want to know. I want to know, did Fang Fang co-sign? Because then we got something really good. You remember Fang Fang? Apparently she was a Chinese spy who just happened to be working for one Eric Swalwell and allegedly was more than just working. We'll leave it at that. Okay, so let's go to his response. Oh, I'm innocent. I'm innocent. Of course I'm innocent. Yeah, right. We'll wait and see.
The context here is important to bring up. Just from 48 hours ago, a report in which Fannie Mae watchdogs were removed from their jobs who had been probing to see whether Trump appointee Bill Pulte had improperly obtained mortgage records of key Democratic officials, including New York Attorney General Letitia James, according to people familiar with the matter. Fannie's Ethics and Investigations Group had received internal complaints alleging senior officials had improperly directed staff to access the mortgage documents of James and others, according to the people. It was 2 months ago, I recall, when Bill Pulte, who is the head of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, made his first referrals as it pertained to Adam Schiff and Letitia James to the Department of Justice. That is what, to our understanding, has taken place today. Could you be specific when, as we wait to see if the Department of Justice seeks to take this up in a panel, a grand jury, when folks ask you about the specific allegations of a double primary residence, what do you say about your situation?
Yeah, I only have one mortgage and a residence in California, and I spend my time every week between California and Washington, D.C. This is, again, just Donald Trump doing everything he can to target his enemies. In our lawsuit, it's not lost on me that we've begun to depose members of the administration. And so you can connect the dots there if you will. But this is why being in the majority also matters, because these guys think that they can do this because they're invincible and there are no consequences. And a year from now, we are going to win the majority. And that's what we learned last Tuesday when California voters stood up against Donald Trump. And when we're in the majority, we will have subpoena power and accountability will happen. So Bill Pulte and any other lawless official who is carrying out these political prosecutions on behalf of Donald Trump, they should familiarize themselves with the Judiciary Committee room, because they're going to be.
You know what I think is so sad about this? What I think is so sad, I mean, California is a mess, right? So they get their gerrymandering that is, by the DOJ's estimate, to be totally illegal. And just as a layperson and not as an attorney myself, it does seem rather illegal when you're trying to district by race. But I would say California's a mess. You've got Gavin Newsom, who's a mess. You've got Swalwell, who's always been one big hot mess. Okay, just ask Fang Fang. And you've got now him promising that if they take back the majority in the House, they're going to turn around and ratchet up the subpoenas and this, that, and the other. I mean, what we need to do, honestly, is to get away from all this, right? We need to get away from what went down with Russia. I want to know, who started it. That's part of the issue. Was this all going back to Obama? I mean, you look at Brennan right now, and he's allegedly about to be indicted. You've got Comer and Jim Jordan promising not just James Comey's indictment, but Brennan as well. I want to show you. Here they are speaking with Hannity just the other night.
Your thoughts on Mr. Higher Honor, Jim Jordan?
Well, yeah, I mean, he's not the only one, Sean. I mean, we just referred John Brennan 3 weeks ago because we believe he definitely lied to Congress when he told us that he wasn't involved with the dossier and didn't want it included in the intelligence community assessment. Only problem is, Tulsi Gabbard declassified and released a report from the House Intelligence Committee, which said just the opposite, said he was involved, did want it in. In fact, he was approached by a CIA official who said, Mr. Brennan, this dossier doesn't hold up. We shouldn't include it. Brennan's response was, yeah, but doesn't it ring true? Showing his motivation, his motive was to just go after President Trump, even though the evidence wasn't there. So not only Comey, but Brennan, and frankly, we're looking into Jack Smith and his team because two of his deputies, who we've already deposed, took the Fifth Amendment 71 and 73 times respectively to some basic questions. And so we're working on getting the documents from Cash and from Pam Bondi at the Justice Department. So we're ready for the deposition when we bring Jack Smith in real soon.
All right.
Wow. Okay. So Jack Smith's going in there. I mean, I hear what you guys are saying, 200 watt, making the point, isn't it kind of a problem when you're trying to threaten the person that's doing the investigation? And that's kind of what we were hearing, of course, from Eric Swalwell just moments ago. But this is big. I mean, so, you got Pulte in there. I don't think Pulte's going to let me just say, Eric, if you have an apartment in California that's just an apartment that you rent, and then you have your main home in DC area, I would just say like it's a little confusing, right? Only because I would think that your main home should actually be in the state that you represent. So that could become an issue, maybe. Or let's just assume that okay, you know, it seems to be both. Do you think Pulte's just going to say, okay, that apartment is actually a mortgage? Like, I'm kind of thinking Pulte probably has 2 mortgages, both of which allegedly, just like Schiff, allegedly, are in 2 locations, both as primary. And you can't do it. Like, you just can't do it. It's surreal, like what has happened. But such is the world we live in, where, you know, the head of the CIA doesn't do evidence, just intelligence.
Did you find direct evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Putin in Moscow while you were there?
Mr. Rooney, I never was an FBI agent. I never was a prosecutor, so I really don't do evidence. I do intelligence throughout the course of my career. As an intelligence professional, what we try to do is...
Anyway, you get the picture. So we're still living with the remnants of what was. And I tell you this as someone who mainly used to report on the economy, right? All of a sudden, I'm thrust into this in 2016 because I'm looking at this dossier saying, gee, this really doesn't add up, right? And sure enough, it didn't. None of it added up. And yet they ran with this hoax. And now they're trying to run with a new one. This Epstein stuff, I'm like, the Epstein story to nowhere. I mean, to the point where you got the Democrat Party putting crapola out like this. Documents show Donald Trump spent Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein in 2017. It's like, guys, Epstein was in prison and Donald Trump was in the White House. So I don't think they were partying, on the Lolita Express, okay? Like, I'm sorry, like, at some point, like, push comes to shove and you're just off in Never Never Land and you've completely lost the entire narrative, which is why you lost the election and which is why I hope you're going to lose it again in 2024. I mean, one of the problems is how's the economy going to be doing? Look, I mean, you're looking at crypto that's been a little dicey, right? Like, full disclosure, I still like it. I mean, I'm in it for the long haul. We put out a note about opportunity and how you should seize opportunities. Actually, just yesterday, sure enough, NASDAQ closing up higher today. But I encourage you to go take a look at my company, 76 Research. Let me put this up, which is a research company, financial research. And there's no, we don't get any kickbacks from anybody. There's just, all this is what we think, myself and a longtime friend, Rob Horton, who spent 20 years on Wall Street. And the two of us kind of have a pretty, I'd like to say very solid view of the world. And we share that with you in 76 Research. And we encourage people to invest for the long run. It's really, really important. I can't say that enough. Somebody in the chat was just saying, Trish, you got to encourage more kids to do this. And I agree because, hey, the younger you are, the better. And I always say, like, what you see, you will not miss. So, even if it's just $5 a week that you can somehow put into an S&P 500 fund, believe me, you will thank yourself later. Check out 76 Research. We have a channel as well on YouTube. I encourage you guys to do that. Thank you for being here, and thank you for helping to make the Trish Regan channel, wow, what it is, as we look at growing, coming up on 1.2 million subs. Isn't it amazing? So I'm going to be with you over the weekend. I'm going to continue following this story and this nonsense trail that they're trying to feed everyone. Like I said, Rachel Maddow is salivating at the bit. She can't wait to get on the air for her one show a week on Mondays. That'll be funny. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Good to see you as well. Okay, we will regroup live on Monday. If not tomorrow, make sure you hit the bell so you know when I'm live, and say that you want to get all the alerts, because otherwise you may not get the live alerts. Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to see you soon.